Okay, everyone, so let's move on to the next chapter. This is going to be about sleep and dreams. Okay, so we'll kind of cover sleep basics as well as the different stages of sleep, theories as to why we need to sleep, sleep restriction, sleep disorders, kind of how they can affect us, and lastly, dreams. So, quick question for you. True or false? Everyone needs eight hours of sleep. This is actually false. How much you need to sleep varies a lot depending on several factors. A big one is age, of course. So babies need to sleep about 18 hours. Teens need about 10 hours. And as we get older, as you get old, you only need about 5 hours. Okay, so a lot of sleep fundamentals happen and kind of start with what's known as the circadian rhythm. So the circadian rhythm is basically your biological clock, your kind of internal tracking of when you should be awake, when you should be conscious, and when you should be going to sleep. And of course, it acts on the 24-hour day. So my circadian rhythm always tells me to go to bed at about 10:30. Tells me to get up at about 7. Right? Maybe a little earlier than that. But you're going to have like I said, an internal clock that's going to tell you when to do this, regardless of outside stimulation. Your circadian rhythm can be influenced by a lot of different things, particularly lifestyle and experience. So lifestyle, things like traveling, night shifts can obviously impact it. So if you're used to getting up at a certain time, or going to bed at a certain time for a night shift, this can obviously adjust your circadian rhythm. Your experience too. So for example, I worked at a golf course while I was finishing up my undergrad before I moved here. We used to always start work really early. So I'm used to getting up pretty early, even when I don't need to, or don't have to have alarms set or anything like that. Age is another big one. So you've probably heard before that older people tend to like to get up earlier and go to bed earlier. This is actually true. As we age, we tend to kind of adjust more to being morning people. This happens a lot in your 20s. And then it kind of continues on as you keep getting older. Okay, so the way that your circadian rhythm kind of operates is based on something called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Okay? This is a little section in the hypothalamus that we talked about earlier. And it's going to cause the secretion of hormones, or a particular hormone called melatonin. Okay. So melatonin is going to tell us basically it's time to go to sleep. Okay. You can buy melatonin just over the counter at any store really, or any drugstore. You can take it before you go to bed, and it will likely help you sleep. Not just sleep, but actually fall asleep, because that's the hormone that tells you, okay, go to sleep now. A lot of this is based on environmental cues like light. So obviously, if it's dark out or dark in the room you're in, this kind of tells you, okay, go to bed. Light will reduce melatonin production, whereas darkness will tend to increase melatonin production. So obviously, if it's getting dark out or in your room, this is going to tell your body to release melatonin, which is going to make you sleepy. Okay. Okay. So on to the actual cycles of sleep. There's a couple. There's 4 different what we call kind of levels to sleep. But they're kind of divided up into 2 types, 2 main types, I guess you could say. 1, this is kind of your, I guess you could say, deepest sleep, although it's actually when you're most active during sleep. This is called REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep. Okay. So this is kind of, you're going to constantly bounce between, well, not constantly, but frequently bounce between different levels of sleep, but kind of the deepest one is REM sleep, but this is actually when you're most active. So your heart rate tends to increase, your eyes move a lot, even though they're closed, your breathing becomes a bit faster, stuff like that. Okay. Kind of leading up to that, you have non-REM sleep, more quiet sleep stages, and there's actually 3 levels to non-REM sleep. So we'll go through each of these in time. Okay, but before all that happens, we of course have a pre-sleeping period. So obviously, no matter how well, unless you're super, super tired, if you're lying in bed with your eyes closed, it takes you, just a few minutes to fall asleep, you enter what's called the pre-sleep stage. And one thing that happens here is you have something known as alpha waves. So these are electrical signals in your brain, and it's basically, it's fairly slow still, but it's going to kind of tell you that you should kind of be relaxed, but even if you're not fully, even if you're not asleep yet. So it's kind of just, that's really what alpha waves are. They're telling you to kind of sit still and relax. Okay. So by the way, these are just EEGs. So that was part of one of your chapters, not something we covered in class or in online lectures, but was part of your reading. So go have a look at that if you need a quick refresher. Remember, these are just kind of trackings of the electrical signals going around your brain. So that's what these things on the right are. That's the EEG scan. So, okay, on to the actual stages. So first of all, we have stage 1 being the non-REM sleep, stage 1 of the non-REM sleep, and you can kind of think of this as a transitional stage, okay? This is kind of, you could sort of think of it as the most shallow sleep. That's obviously the first level, non-REM sleep, like I said, and lots of interesting things can happen here. One is what we call hypnagogic hallucinations. So these are not exactly the same as dreams, but kind of vivid, well, hallucinations, kind of perceptions that you get kind of in that early stage of sleep. You can also get what's called the myoclonic jerk. So this is that feeling you get like you're falling, okay? If you've ever had that. I can only remember having it a couple times, and it's weird. Okay. Non-REM sleep, stage 2. This is kind of where the more serious sleeping begins, I guess you could say. Let's see. So actually, an important thing that happens during stage 2 of non-REM is that you get these slightly more rapid waves of activity, and this actually helps your memory. So I don't think we cover this in a lot of detail, but sleep is actually important. A lot of what we call the memory consolidation process happens during sleep, and some of it happens during stage 2. A lot of this memory consolidation. A couple things too is that first 2 stages you're still fairly easy to wake up, particularly stage 1, as you can imagine, but you are unconscious. Okay. So this is, next you have stage 3 of non-REM sleep. This is where you're actually a lot harder to wake up. And a lot of this is done by kind of these slower waves that occur. So if you look on your right here, you'll notice that kind of the difference in the EEG scan, that's because of the slower waves happening, also known as the delta waves. Okay, so these delta waves are what kind of keeps you in a deeper sleep that means you can't so easily be woken up. Okay? So if you've ever had, say you shared a hotel room with someone or whatever, and there was a thunderstorm, but you remember it, but they don't. Well, what likely happened there is that maybe they got a bit of a head start, fell asleep a little earlier, and they were able to reach stage 3 during the thunderstorm, but you were still in stage 1 or 2 during the thunderstorm. So what happens is that because they're in the deeper sleep with the delta waves, the slow waves, they're much harder to disturb, right? They're in this deeper stage, so they don't even remember or register thunder waves, whereas you were still in stage 1 or 2, not quite as more easily woken up, so you're still able to actually be awoken by the thunderstorms, right? So different stages of sleep, that might be why. Okay, so on to the big one. Oh, by the way, stage 3 lasts about 30 minutes. We'll look at a time plot of all this stuff in a bit. I have no idea who these people are. I'm using someone else's, kind of working off someone else's lecture, so there's random pictures everywhere. If you know who these people are, email me. I want to know. Okay, so REM sleep. So that's kind of, I guess, in a way, the deepest sleep, but this is also, like I said, when your brain is going to be actually the most active. Okay, so like I said, your heart rate is going to increase, your breathing becomes kind of faster, but also a bit more erratic. Your eyes move a lot, and this lasts about 10 minutes. You also have smaller and faster brain waves, and importantly, this is also where dreams happen. Okay? So dreams you can actually kind of remember. If you say were woken up during REM sleep, then you have a higher chance of remembering your dreams. So if you say, as we're going to see next, you go from REM sleep back to non-REM sleep, and you kind of you switch between them a whole bunch of times throughout the night. But if you kind of wake up after being, say, in a non-REM stage, you're unlikely to remember your dreams because they happened a few cycles ago, or 20 minutes ago, or whatever it might be. Whereas when you come right out of REM sleep, you just freshly had the dream, so you're more what your sleep cycles typically look like. Okay. So, like you said, you get into these 4 different levels. Obviously, you start by being awake. Then what happens is you go into non-REM 1, non-REM 2, non-REM 3, and then finally into REM. So just with this chart, when it's going straight down, that doesn't mean it's passing through REM. It's only when it's moving horizontally to the right, you're actually in that stage. So at the start here, you're not in REM, you're skipping, you're not going into REM. You're just spending a little bit of time in non-REM 1, just to clarify that. You can see, like I said, go back into REM. Then you're going to move into non-REM 2, then back into non-REM 3, non-REM 2, then back into REM. So this is kind of what typically happens. You might get up, go to the bathroom, something like that, grab a snack, and then it sort of starts over. Non-REM 1, non-REM 2, non-REM 3, back to 2. So it doesn't always follow the exact kind of way you're expecting, but that's kind of the general finding. A few things to note. As you see with the older adults, the cycles tend to happen more frequently. So rather than spending a long time in non-REM 3 or REM or whatever it might be, you see here that they're going through more frequent but shorter cycles, right? Another thing to note here is that with younger adults, particularly, REM 1 and 2 actually get longer, as does actual REM. So you notice at the start here, non-REM 1, non-REM 2 are quite short. Over here, they're a fair bit longer, okay? I'm just getting my thing out of the way. Damn it. Okay, well, yeah, you see what I mean. So like I said, REM, non-REM 1 and 2 are going to get longer, but the switching is a little less frequent later in the night. Non-REM 3 also kind of gets shorter and shorter and is basically gone in the last few hours of sleep. It's just going to be 1, 2, and non-REM 1 and 2, and then REM. Okay. So that's about it. And like I said, the shifting is going to be more frequent among older adults.